India, 1.8 incidents per 100,000 citizens, right? By that number, at a per capita level, India is only 94th out of the 119 countries which you can look at. You can say that that 1.8 incidents should actually be multiplied by 10 because of underreporting. So it goes up to 18 per 100,000. But even then, it would be less than other countries, such as the United States. Certainly way lower than countries like South Africa and Botswana, which seem to have particularly bad statistics. The reason I'm trying to go into all of this is we need to see what is causing it. Are there problems which are specific and endemic to India or to Africa or to poorer countries? And so therefore, as you go up the, as you become richer and you become more well off, these sort of things will stop happening. Rising stature of women, as people say happens in Europe, things will get automatically better. But if these statistics are correct, then that doesn't happen even then.
The statistics actually only show the tip of the iceberg. What the real story is the trend lines. And there are different reasons for rape reporting and the occurrence of rape in different cultures. There's obviously overarching patriarchy which exists in the world. And in the United States, one of the big reasons for rape is the culture of violence, which is promoted through the increased militarization of this country. Sweden, of course, is because of reporting and prompt action by the police, which is why we see the data the way it is, so skewered and so high. What is disturbing and troubling about India is that the trend is showing that the number of rapes is increasing steadily every year. From 2000 to 2015 to 2016, the rape rate on children increased by 82%. From 2014 to 2016 and 17, the rape rate has increased by 12% on women. Now,
but
this
Ruchira,
is very
if I could just pause you for a minute, but yes. By going by the same logic that you were talking about earlier, is it possible, because I know that Geeta and others are going to say that may well be the case, is it partly because a lot more attention is now being focused on the question? After Nirbhay, there has been a nationwide outrage about it. The media has become way more vigilant and it certainly highlights every time there is a rape and assault. So it could be one of two things. One is that the cases of rape and the cases of attacks, especially on children, are actually in absolute terms rising. That may well be the case. Another possibility is that the incidents are the same or what they've always been, it's just that more of them are being reported, more of them are being highlighted, more of them are coming out in the press. This ghastly incident in Kathua took 3 months before the entire national media and everyone picked it up. Maybe at another time it wouldn't have been picked up at all. It would have just been some incident which would have happened. No one would have come to know about it. So is that also a possibility?
Of course, there is more reporting because we have better laws and more safety for women to report, and people are really making an effort. But on the other hand, what is increasing is targeted rape. Targeted rapes of Dalits, targeted rapes of Muslims, and pornified rape, the celebration of rape, which has increased across the country. And that is the worrying trend. It began after the Babri Masjid demolition. As you remember, a videotape was made of 17 women being gang raped in Surat. And after that, the tape was distributed. And do you know that today in Uttar Pradesh, in every kiosk, there are tapes being sold of real rapes as pornography. Now, this is a new trend. Pornography has become the propaganda arm of the rape industry, and rape is being celebrated of what is the enemy group or the other group and glorified. So there have been speakers who are BJP leaders, and I want to name the BJP because I have been researching online to see who are the leaders who are glorifying this rape and conducting the rapes. Ashok Sengar is a BJP MLA who raped a Dalit girl, a 17-year-old Dalit girl, and subsequently her father was arrested and killed in jail. How did that happen? Also, the man in Kashmir who raped the 8-year-old girl was a custodian of a Hindu temple, and police went along with it.
Okay, Ruchira, strong comments made out there. Before I come to the rest of you, I just feel you should get a chance to respond to that.
Rape, it's a very heinous crime in any society, it across any caste, creed, and religion. Rape is something which everybody, whether all the political parties, they have been detesting it and saying that it should not be present in the society. It's very unfortunate thing what happened in Kathua, very unfortunate what happened in Unnao. But do we know that in the last 3 months, because what happened in Kathua was in January, on 18th of March in Kashmir again, there was in Madarsa, a 7-year-old girl was raped and murdered. But the only difference was that the perpetrator was basically the one who used to teach in that Madarsa where that little girl used to go, right? Now, but so is the lawyers collective going to take up her case? Is the lawyers collective going to make a... Can I just... I think, Vikram, you should let panelists complete their opening remarks. This kind of interjection can be... Let me complete. In Naigaon in Assam, a 12-year-old girl was raped, she was burned. But again, who was the perpetrator? The perpetrator was with the name of Zakir Hussain. So is it that the reason that the social media outrage is not there? So
actually,
what is happening?
Social media outrage
right?
will be there.
The point is, one point I want to make, just one small point, Vikram, I want to make is that Nirbhaya's name, I mean, how many of us who are sitting here who know what was the actual name of Nirbhaya? But the name of this little girl, who died such an unfortunate death in Kathua, her name was made public by media, by TV channels, and the High Court had taken a suo motu notice and has fined. I think NDTV is also one of the channels who has been fined by the High Court. 10 lakh rupees they have to pay because they are not supposed to
just make a very short remark,
One second, quickly, two things. Since he has his internet live, and she's talking about social values, it is a shame. You can ask your production to verify. The top trending porn search after the Kathua rape issue came into the public was unfortunately the name of that child. So that shows the values in this country, that people wanted to see that dastardly rape. And now on the issue of this, 1 minute, this most unfortunate comment that has been made here, that do we know Nirbhaya's name? Nirbhaya's mother has said, and the Juvenile Justice Act and the Indian Penal Code clearly says, when a victim is dead, to get justice, if the parents want to show the photograph and want to say the name, they are welcome to. So
and
without
they came
even
on this
asking
channel
the parents,
and asked for her to be named.
yes,
It's not that they didn't.
absolutely, and I applaud the media for that courage.
I don't think it helps to say, well, this person was raped, what happened? This person was raped, what happened? Let's try and find an answer to all of rape. Now, can I come to you, sir? All of this should be stopped, right? How do we stop it?
Underneath the carpet. This was a good preview of how we are not able to do a single thing appropriately and not do a course correction. Let him cast the first stone who has not sinned before. Is it a Congress rape? Is it a BJP rape? It is a rape. Governments come, governments go. But the rape and the dignity of a single child is a matter of extreme concern and not negotiable. Now, coming to the fact, even after the Nirbhaya case, observation 1, only 30% of the rapes are reported, 70% go unreported. Tragedy number 1. 166A of the IPC meant exclusively for those defaulting policemen who do not lodge FIRs, who do not do what they expected to do, should get a punishment of 6 months or dismissed from service. Not a single case registered in most of the states. What kind of a illusion are we living in? Observation number 3, it is not predatory alone. It is a crime of passion, fixation, and fetish. Rick Santorum, the psychologist, has said, and I have myself interviewed, questioned, interrogated hundreds of rape accused, and they said, first I view pornography, I take to drugs, and then I commit rape.
Political legitimacy, because politicians are interwoven into the lives of these godmen. Now today you have godmen interwoven into politics. Today you have godmen in state governments. You have godmen on corporate boards. So actually they have arrived over here. Why would this poor Indian who's having such a difficult life not think that this is really God, this is really a godman? Because we believe in miracles, we believe in myths, we believe in miracles.
But
so it all falls into place.
Okay, so that's a strong way of putting it. I see you shaking your head before I come to him what happened in this case. Is that a fair characterization?
I think not at all.
I mean, she's talking about corporate boardrooms. So, someone like Baba Ramdev has become so powerful.
Let me comment. I'm saying, so not at all. So, I'm sure, Vikram, you will agree, a Tarun Tejpal will not make you a rapist, and a wheeling dealing that we heard on Neera Radia tape doesn't make every journalist a wheeler dealer, right? So, having said that, so India is a very different land. I'm sure, I don't know how many of you live in Lutyens, Delhi and various parts of India. India is a very spiritual land. West may take pride in their cars and their gadgets. Indians take pride in their Ram Katha, in their Krishna Katha, in their Gita and Vedas. And these gurus bring this sacred text to them. So a lot of people derive their energy, their morality, their reasoning from these texts. So what's wrong if they're coming? So a channel like Astha channel or channel like Sanskar TV, they host hundreds of gurus which bring this text to them. And if you go in rural area, they watch it. What's the problem? Watching Hindi movie songs versus watching, I'm not demeaning Hindi movie songs, but watching a Hindi movie song or watching a saint who is delivering Gita sermons, what's wrong in that?
No, so hang on. Obviously, and I think Nalini would also say...
There are 4 or 5 cases.
Let me give you
there are hardly
good
4
news.
5. There are hardly 4 5
Based
cases.
on hard data.
How does it matter?
Let me
They
give
are
you
good
a good
journalists, they're
news
bad journalists,
based on
they're
hard
good,
data.
good,
I've
good
been
saints,
working
they're
on a
bad saints.
project for the past 25 years, which is Public Understanding of Science project. In Kumbh Mela, we have gone every 6 years and conducted a survey. And that survey says that public understanding of science in India is increasing at a fast rate, much faster than what it is in Europe.
How is it related?
Now, what I am saying is that characterizing Indian and clubbing everybody together is a problem. This is a middle class phenomena. Middle class in India is insecure today, heavily insecure, and I agree that when governments withdraw from protecting people, they resort to Babas. But before I come to that, let me say that after 1947, we had a big project of spreading scientific temper in the country. But at the same time, there were some people whom he is eulogizing or romanticizing. They saw an opportunity in a market of superstitions, myths,
How
and
can a Gita
lies.
sermon be a superstition, Vikram?
That's far
If he doesn't
Now, let me
understand Gita,
complete.
that is his
Let
problem.
me
I know
complete.
it's a
I didn't
difficult text to
speak.
understand. It's a
Let me
difficult text to
complete.
understand.
Let me
and he's not
complete.
able to appreciate the text.
Let me complete.
With all due respect,
Let me
Professor,
complete.
your view
I'll
is
come- I'll
absolutely
complete.
one-sided and
And
atheist.
also comment on science, right? Ayurveda was considered...
hold
hang
on.
on.
Hold on,
Atheistic
let me
beliefs,
complete.
hang on. Atheistic beliefs also have their place. I mean,
They have their
theoretically,
place.
everyone
Right.
in a
can't be
country like
generalized in
Not by
context to India.
calling other texts down. Not
You
by
you
calling
can't be
other texts down.
generalizing it.
complete.
Which is doing.
You know?
Let him finish and I'll come to you. Yeah.
These people saw an opportunity and a market in the country,
Sure.
and therefore they employed people. They played with the sentiments of the people and amassed huge amount of money. And once this money was amassed, then they had other aspirations, political aspirations, and many other aspirations. So you have a nexus of sex, politics, bureaucracy, and babas. And this is a disastrous kind of
very limited
concoction which has
Okay,
a
now
lot
hang on.
of
I think I know. I see a lot of people wanting to come in.
I'm even wondering what is happening on a channel like this. This is a very limited understanding of the whole thing.
Okay, let me ask you. I still believe it is unfair to tar everyone with the same brush. I think there have certainly been, well, so-called Babas who are, I think all of us will agree are not particularly spiritual, and they're doing exactly what they said. There are others who
give
may
you
well
some
be just spreading the word of the Gita or spreading the Ramayana or spreading the word of, any religion.
Very useful for many.
Yeah.
There are
Can I give
Babas
you some
across
more
You
Asia.
should never, I don't think you should generalize for everybody, but is
Can
it,
I give
is
you
it
some
fair?
more data at the moment?
Can I get him in, then I'll come back to you.
The money allocated to Department of Science and Technology is 4,836
No, we don't want to
crores.
go that route.
Right?
Your research is flawed.
DSIR. This
Sir,
is-
I'm looking
this
a
is
person
DST.
who invented this word, God man. As far as concerned to the Hinduism and Sanatan Dharma, there is a no culture with regard to the government. We have a culture of the Guru. We have the culture of Guru Shishya Parampara. That's why we have a shloka. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And I am asking a very simple question with all my fellow panelists. Give me the name of the 10%. Out of the 2 crore person who belong to the religious community, either they are sadhu, they sant, they sannyasi, give me the name of only 10% who got conviction under the rape charges. Otherwise, I am ready to give you 100 names who belong to the other communities and they got conviction under the rape charges, because right now by the case of Asharam and Ram Rahim, they got an opportunity to just malign
exactly.
the image
Okay,
and
wait a minute.
culture of the
Exactly.
and
I
targeting
think
the
it's bang
Hindu
on
religious
point.
practice. This is a fact.
Okay. What is it that gives in these cases specifically? And I will still call them bad apples. So what he was saying that you should not have a problem with somebody reading the Gita on a channel, I agree with him. Nobody should have a problem with that. What is it that gives somebody like Asaram Bapu and Gurmeet Ram Rahim or any of the other people, or that Maulvi, in that case, or that Christian priest who raped somebody in Kerala, any of these people, what gives them the right? What gives them the authority to feel? What gives them the feeling that they can rape somebody in their ashram and get away with it? And why do families allow it to happen?
The clear answer is that the sense of impunity. If you know that you are not going to be tried, prosecuted and hanged to death if you rape a little minor and murder her, the sense of impunity is too much in this country. You look at 10 attacks on witnesses, 2 have died, 1 is missing, not a single FIR against Asaram till date, despite of the fact that we filed a petition in the Supreme Court demanding a Supreme Court monitored CBI investigation. This is impunity, right? It's a chain of series that helps. So if Asaram knows that he can get away with attacking 10 witnesses and murdering 2, one more Baba will do that.
6 साल पहले मेरे ऊपर सेडिशन लगा था और बहुत सारी डिबेट हुई थी कि कार्टून पे सेडिशन लगना चाहिए कि नहीं। 2015 में डिसीजन आया था मुंबई हाई कोर्ट का इस पे।
आप तो जेल भी गए थे।
मैं जेल भी गया था, पर क्या हम जरा भी आगे बढ़ पाए? अभी भी वही हो रहा है कि किसी पे भी आप सेडिशन लगा देना है कार्टून शेयर करने के लिए। हम सब जानते हैं कार्टून से कोई लेना देना सेडिशन से नहीं हो सकता है, कोर्ट ये बात बोल चुका है, पर हम नाकाम रहे हैं ओवरऑल इस बात को बदल पाने में। और सबको ये पता है कि कोई जरा सी भी किसी भी बात से गिरफ्तार हो सकता है, तो हम एक सेल्फ सेंसरशिप लोगों पे लाद रहे हैं, उनको इम्पोज करें कि वो ऐसा करें और अपने आप को।
Okay, so the threat of judicial action and the threat of sedition charges leads to a certain amount of self-censorship that you are saying. Govinda Dethraj is joining us now, founder, Boom, very senior journalist. Govind, great to have you with us. I was listing many of the concerns, Govind, government action, safety, the threat of sedition which leads to self-censorship. Fake news is another obvious one which you're spending a lot of your time trying to counter. Is that one of the biggest threats that the press faces in India right now? People don't even know what's true and what's not true anymore.
All of fake news, or 98% of it, is actually happening off media or off mainstream media. It's happening in the dark nether worlds of WhatsApp, Facebook, the internet in general. So you really don't know where it's coming from, and in some ways where it's going. At the same time, it's obviously acting as a very, very powerful influencer in people's thinking. It's able to manipulate, and as many people say, information is being used to weaponize. That is, you spread things and then it converts into some sort of action, which of course is of either the communal kind or some other form of violence, which we've seen many instances in this country already. So I'm not sure I can juxtapose fake news with freedom, because these are slightly different issues. But I think freedom in general is affected because of self-censorship. I mean, amongst the 67 reasons that you pointed out, to me, self-censorship is perhaps the biggest threat.
Is the media in some sort of crisis in India? And if so, what do you think the reasons for that would be?
No, I don't think there's any crisis in the media. There are certain issues, but I would say largely financial, that the media is facing. As a print media person, an editor of a national daily, I can say this much, that these things are natural. The technology is evolving, newer media is coming up, and there are challenges. When TV first came, there were people who were writing obituaries of the newspapers. We survived. Now social media has come. That's another challenge. So all told, I think the media space is under some kind of siege, because there is a lot of pressure on the respective organs of the media, print, TV, social media, to kind of survive monetarily.
If I could, let me just throw something at you, Chandan. I get that, but when it comes, for example, to things like government, so I'm just going to quote 2 or 3 things for you. India down 3 points on the World Press Freedom Index. That's not something we should be happy about, right? Because it's been in a free country.
Who decides this World Press Freedom Index?
It's now 138 actually. This is Reporters Without Borders is where this has come from.
We don't know the credibility of this organization.
Okay. So here's something which is clear cut. 11 journalists murdered in 2017, not necessarily because of the government. And I'm just going to quote again from Reporters Sans Frontiers, which says, in India, hate speech targeting journalists is shared and amplified on social networks, often by troll armies in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's pay. Fair criticism, unfair criticism.
This is absolutely ridiculous, and this is fake news. The prime example of fake news, and therefore we should discount it completely.
Okay, Madhu Trehan. There seems to be some concern that is it in good shape? Is it in good shape or bad shape?
Well, I don't think Chandan would be saying the same thing if the UPA was in power, if the Congress was in power. Because both the Congress and the BJP have done the same thing as far as the freedom of press. Congress has the worst history as far as freedom of press is concerned. They banned the most books, the most films, banned satanic verses even before any other Islamic country banned it. So they have a terrible history.
Asim's case was under the Congress party.
Exactly.
The defamation bill was under the Congress
Section
party.
66A was absolutely deplorable. Okay, that was removed by the judiciary, by a young lawyer who filed a petition. But right now the situation is this, and I would say that the Congress shouldn't feel smug because they have behaved very badly with the press right throughout. And the BJP does the same thing, but they're much smarter and more cruel. And it's so subterranean.
Smarter and more cruel.
Yes, because it is not overt. The Congress is kind of ham-handed, all right? So everybody gets to know, the press reacts, the public reacts, and then they pull back. This, in my reading, what it is that the BJP is far more clever. And in this situation, like why did the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting issue this notice that there will be a policy review of internet regulations, of news websites? Now, why? What is the reason? What do they want? What do they want? I would like to ask, what do they want to regulate? Can you regulate the internet?
Well, you could regulate ownership, for example, and there's frankly no real reason why you should have ownership norms for television and for print and not have that in the media.
No, but the thing is
internet.
that those
I mean,
rules,
that is a valid concern.
there are enough
Why should most news on online portals be on Chinese platforms, Chinese news platforms?
Vikram,
That's a valid question.
there are enough people on the net who have been arrested by existing rules. They've been, there are more websites, URLs blocked in India than any other country. You know that any Twitter handles, anything can be blocked at any time. They have all the powers already. So my question is, what is it that they want to do further? Because they've got all the power in the world. One question.
Madhu, can I just interrupt you for a minute? Because I just want to go across to Kamal Shukla. He's a journalist. Kamal ji, धन्यवाद आप हमारे साथ हैं. क्या आप बताएंगे आपने क्या किया? आपने Facebook पे कुछ शेयर किया. आप पत्रकार हैं. आपने काफी बार पत्रकार होने के हैसियत से आप पर अटैक्स हुए हैं. आपको पीटा भी गया है. और इस बार आपने एक Facebook पे कुछ शेयर किया और अब आपके खिलाफ एक FIR है. वो भी सेडिशन के मामले में.
जी, मैं ये कहना चाहता हूं कि देश के लोकतांत्रिक संस्थाओं के स्थिति को लेकर चिंता प्रकट करना कोई देशद्रोही का काम तो हो नहीं सकता. लोकतांत्रिक संस्थाओं अपने लोकतंत्र के हिसाब से काम कर सकें, ऐसा चिंता प्रकट करने वाले लोग तो देशभक्त होते हैं. जिनको चिंता नहीं है वही देशद्रोही हो सकते हैं. तो मैंने तो चिंता प्रकट किया कि जज लोया के प्रकरण पे जब उस मजिस्ट्रेट ने, जिसके खिलाफ उसी के सुप्रीम कोर्ट के ही 4 मजिस्ट्रेट ने जब बकायदा प्रेस वार्ता करके चिंता प्रकट करके पूरे देश के लोगों को अधिकार दे दिया कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट या देश की न्यायपालिका जो है संदेह के दायरे में है, तो मैंने ऐसा कोई गलत काम क्या किया?
कमल जी, आपके खिलाफ जो पहले भी काफी हमले हुए हैं, कुछ क्या ऐसे राज्य हैं, कुछ ऐसे इलाके हैं जहां आप जैसे पत्रकारों के लिए काम करना बहुत ही मुश्किल हो रहा है?
हमारे यहाँ बस्तर में मैं खुद भोग रहा हूँ. पिछले 30 साल से मैं हूँ वहाँ, मगर पिछले 4-5 साल से जो हमारे लिए दिक्कत पैदा हुई है, तो बहुत खतरनाक बात है. अगर यही देश है तो बहुत मुश्किल है. हमारे यहाँ सच बोलना, हमारे 4 साथी नक्सलियों ने मार डाले. सरकार ने हमको अलग परेशान करके रखा हुआ है. सच बताना हमारे लिए बड़ा मुश्किल है, सच लिखना बड़ा मुश्किल है. इस तरह की स्थिति यहाँ पैदा की गई है.
आप अभी भी एक तरह से छुपे हैं कहीं, क्योंकि आपको पता नहीं है कि इस केस में क्या होगा. FIR आपके खिलाफ अब दर्ज किया गया है. आपको क्या सुनने में आ रहा है? आप किस बात से चिंतित हैं अभी?
नहीं, जेल जाने को लेकर तो मुझे कोई डर नहीं है, मगर राष्ट्रद्रोही कहलाना एक बहुत शर्म और खतरनाक बात है. इस देश के लिए मैं बहुत प्यार करता हूं अपने देश से, मगर मेरे जो राष्ट्रद्रोही बोल के जो आरोप लगाए जा रहे हैं और मेरे ऊपर हमले हो रहे हैं, लगातार फेसबुक, सोशल मीडिया में राष्ट्रद्रोही बता के हमले किए जा रहे हैं, ये मेरे लिए ज्यादा चिंताजनक बात है.
Aruna Roy, the rule of law, I guess, is the question that is constantly coming up. You heard MN Singh saying, and others in the government have said, and the Pune police is saying, if we have evidence that there is a plot to kill Narendra Modi, would you expect us not to act on that? And acting on that is the rule of law, and therefore people should fight it out in the courts, because that's the right place to fight it out.
Actually, I just see this very differently. I see that first of all, as a former civil servant, I know, and I've also been a victim of fabricated stories. When we are beaten up, the poor, and we go to a police station and subsequently to the government, we hear that we have been the perpetrators of the crime. This is such a common phenomenon in villages. I mean, it's not at all unusual to find this happening everywhere. So to believe that what goes for evidence is the truth is another thing. So the evidence has to be very, very honestly examined. And I don't know whether in any system today that honesty and that courage to look at facts is the truth rather than what is required for them to believe or state is a big moral issue that hangs over the whole of civil society. It's not my story, it's the story of hundreds of thousands of Indians who feel that none of these should go and be established as essentials for prosecution before there is considerable evidence to prove that it is true. So to have a case against people without this pre-examination of facts itself, for me, is not quite correct. And it doesn't lead us towards the rule of law. The other thing I feel is that civil society has occupied the space of questioning any government, whichever government comes, for the implementation of constitutional rights. And all the people who have been accused are people who are uncomfortable for any establishment and for any state because they raise issues of constitutional validity and they amplify the voices of very poor people who are completely neglected because of a society which has problems, which has a system which has problems, and increasingly an economic paradigm in which they are seen as constant irritants, setting up issues of legal correctness, of constitutional validity of their positions, and they must be removed at some cost or the other. So what is happening is a combination of many factors, but I think the problem lies in the fact that we expect, and I still expect, that it's my government and my government should give me justice.
All right. So you're saying this is really about silencing people who are speaking out, and especially people who are speaking out for the poor. Prashant Bhushan, let me just throw that to you. If there is acts of violence which the police have got, what they're saying is legitimate and enough adequate evidence, and they're going to present that before the Supreme Court on the 6th, then what's wrong in saying, all right, fine, then the police is well within its right to act upon that?
Well, if they had credible evidence of a plot to kill the Prime Minister or a plot to overthrow the government by violent means in which these people were involved, then I am sure that the police would have registered a completely different FIR on the basis of this evidence, and that this investigation would not have been handled then by the Pune police, it would have been handled by the NIA or by any other agency. Secondly, how can the police, the Pune police, hold a press conference in violation of court orders and court guidelines and just bandy about some letters without putting them out in the public domain? By just saying earlier they bandied around some purported letter that they recovered from the computer of Rona Wilson suggesting a plot to assassinate the Prime Minister, etc. These kind of things are just bandied around in press conferences in order to create prejudice, in order to allow these North Korean channels to run these kind of stories to prejudice public minds against these people in clear violation of the law. And how does the police go and arrest people without even translating the documents, the FIRs which are in Marathi, etc.? They are not shown to the accused, they are not even shown to the judge, even translated copies of the FIRs or the arrest memos, etc. They take them in Marathi and seek to arrest and take them on remand, etc. Who is going to believe this cock and bull story? I know most of these people personally quite well. I know Sudha Bharadwaj for the last so many years. I know Anand Tel Tumble, I know Gautam Navlakha, who has been a sterling human rights activist for the last 20 years.
That
the point
is,
it is incredible to believe that these kind of people would be involved in
Prashant, that
a
those
violent plot to
those statements in
overthrow
this
the
day and
government.
age would probably just those statements would probably just go to mean somebody says that therefore your name should also go up on a list of urban Naxals. The fact you knew them.
No, it's all right. It's all right. What I'm saying is this:
the lists that are going around.
That you can't just take these kind of things being thrown around by the police commissioner at a press conference at face value. Let them produce those letters. Let them, if they have the courage to hold a press conference on the basis of these letters, let them put them out in the public domain.
Aman Singh, you know, on this entire question, you were talking about rural police, urban police. It's actually interesting because the urban Pune police seems to be saying urban Naxalites and, you know, there's a plot for violence. The rural Pune police seem to be saying these were right-wing activists responsible for Bhima Koregaon to start off with. So there was some discrepancy out there. And thirdly, these letters that are ostensibly the basis for what the police is now saying they are doing, why should those not be made public?
Well, let me first answer Mrs. Aruna Roy, Vikram. She is very unfortunate that she has such opinion about the police, and she says completely distrust the police. All right, if you don't trust the police, fine, but do you have trust in the judiciary or no? Matter is ultimately going before the Supreme Court. Do you have faith in the judiciary? Then why do you prejudge the whole thing? That's one. Two, Mr. Prashant Bhushan, you see, all these issues that he has raised is all technical issues. They do not take away the merit of the case. And I'm sorry to say he is a very senior advocate, but I think some of his arguments are very amateurish. There may be his relative also involved in the case tomorrow. Are we not going to take action against him? What kind of argument is this? I think it is all people, and he is saying that the police is trying to influence the public opinion and the judiciary. On the contrary, my allegation is that it is these civil society people and people like Advocate Prashant Bhushan who are trying to even prejudice the judiciary and the public opinion. There is a whole lot of hue and cry going on in the country. After all, police are only following the due process of law. Challenge them in the court of law. How can you say that police commissioner has spoken only once and his deputy commissioner spoke once, whereas all kinds of variety of people in the civil society and all that are speaking day in and day out and creating a public opinion, a big hype. My charge is that it is the civil society activists who are prejudicing the whole process of the law, and that for God's sake, let the law take its own course and let us not create such a hype.
Okay, let me throw that to the people you mentioned, and then I'm going to come to my studio guests as well. So let me start with you, Aruna Roy. He said that if you don't have trust in the police, do you have trust in the judiciary? So wait for the judiciary to say something on this.
But I think he's so prejudiced against civil society, and this prejudice that he has expressed so clearly in this last few minutes, that he thinks civil society is responsible for everything that goes wrong in society, shows the mentality and the prejudice of a police system.
It's obvious.
I'm just saying that the police system is as subject to society and to politics as anybody else. So therefore, if a police report comes out, that's why there have been all kinds of, excuse me, just keep quiet for a minute. But all things that it's even under the law, a confession to a police officer is not taken seriously unless it's validated by something else. So it's something that because of the power of that individual, when I was an IAS officer, I could have got many things done because I was in a seat of power. But when I've been on the other side, I know exactly what happens when in a situation of powerlessness, what happens when you go and you want to get to the truth. So I think somewhere we have to understand, he lives in India, I live in India, and we all know what happens. Not the entire police is not to be trusted, but that the system perpetuates a kind of mistrust, you have to understand. And if I have to understand, I have to understand that there may be some elements in civil society. Civil society, by the way, please let me finish, is a very large term. It doesn't include just me and you. It includes people who've been lynching and killing people. It includes people who have been taking videos of lynchings and spreading it all over the place. It includes the spreading of hate. It includes the spreading of social terror. It includes all of them. What have you done with them? You think I don't belong to that segment of civil society which does any of these things. I brought with a number of other people laws under the Constitution, fought on the streets of this country in a very Gandhian way to ask for my rights. And I know that many of the police officials were very good, but the system is one thing and individuals are quite another.
When people said 2,500 crore rupees is being spent on Chhatrapati Shivaji and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel's statue, I gave a very simple answer that these are national icons, admittedly national icons, who are going to inspire many generations to come, first. Secondly, these places are being developed as integrated tourist hub, which are going to generate economic activity and huge employment, and are going to develop the entire area. So it is not merely about the statue. It is also about the development. Both the things are integrated here.
Can I ask you a question? Going by that same logic,
yes,
you should consider putting up a statue of Shah Jahan outside the Taj Mahal and making that into an integrated
Shah
hub.
Jahan is not a national icon. I'm very sure. At least I don't believe that.
Is the Taj a national icon?
Who?
Is the Taj Mahal a national icon?
Taj Mahal is a national icon, and I still believe it was not built by him. Yes.
Yeah,
you go. This is a history. This is a history. Go and find out.
See, this is a history they want to
Please go and visit and see the symbols of West culture there in the Taj Mahal.
5 seconds.
Hey, wait, please. Pradeep. I have to get to the bottom of this. The Taj Mahal was not built by Shah Jahan. It was built in Vedic times.
No, it was built in about 1000 AD, and it can be proved. It can be proved, and there are symbols of Hinduism all over the place. Go and visit and see that.
Hang on.
No, Vikram, I'm
Let me know this.
Look at the symbols in the Lal
There is
Killa.
a mosque on
Clear
one
symbols
side.
inside, which it was built by Tomar dynasty. There are symbols in Lal Killa.
The Lal Killa was also not built by Shah Jahan.
Yes,
Vikram,
I clearly say so.
Vikram.
There are symbols. I have very closely visited.
Okay, can I ask you?
I have visited these places, and I have seen the symbols of Hinduism inside.
How about the Jama Masjid?
Vikram, that also.
It was known as Yamuna Mandir.
Sorry, Jama Masjid was known as...
Let me finish. This is really fascinating. Let me tell you something about Islamic architecture.
No, was the Jama Masjid built by...
I'll come to that. All our Indian temples were near the rivers, built on a very raised platform. It is not the Islamic architecture. Islamic architecture, the mosque you straight away enter, they are not built on high pedestal. These are the symbols.
No, one sec. Seeing as we are discussing history, I'm trying to understand how far this goes. So the Taj Mahal was actually not built by Shah Jahan, it was built by the Tomar dynasty.
Not Tomar. Not Tomar.
1000 AD.
No. It was not Tomar, was
the Red Fort.
Who
built the Jama Masjid? That's what I want to know now.
Jama Masjid is a Yamuna Mandir. I have not.
The Jama Masjid was a Yamuna Mandir.
Islamic architecture disproves that it's a mosque.
Vikram.
Hazrat Bal in Kashmir.
Vikram.
I don't know about that.
Hazrat Bal, you're not
I don't know about that.
Francois, Pradeep, you've spoken enough. Francois and Professor Raghi.
Francois intolerant to his view. He's questioning, yeah.
He's entitled to his view.
He's entitled. Tomorrow it might come out to be true. These guys have been monopolized. Mr. Habib does not have the only aspect of history. He might be true right now. Tomorrow he might be false. Come on, yeah, be tolerant to his view. Why are you making him laughing stock?
Everyone is...
Tomorrow come out with the research which will be proved worldwide, and tomorrow it might
tomorrow in the NCERT textbooks in class 5, we should say that the Taj Mahal was actually built in 1000.
No, I'm not saying that. Let's debate.
And the Jama Masjid was a Yamuna temple.
I'm entitled for my view.
No, of course you're entitled to your view. I'm not disputing your view.
Let him back you with research.
Let him do the research, then we debate. I'm not saying Desh is not entitled to his view. Of course he's entitled to his view.
And it has to be scientifically proven.
Absolutely, yes.
It has to be
He
scientifically
can
proven.
believe anything.
And I'm willing to prove it.
I can believe, if I so want to, that I built the Rashtrapati Bhavan before I was born. Now I'm entitled to that belief. Now should that be taught to people?
No, it should be
in
proved
school
scientifically.
Is a different question.
Absolutely
It has to be proved scientifically.
It has to be proved
And
scientifically.
Now, Professor Raghi, I mean, this is where I think we're getting at. Everyone is entitled to their own views and their own beliefs. Now, history has to be taught to, I'm actually particularly worried about young kids, because when you get to their age, presumably they can figure out for themselves what should be the case or not. When the government comes up and starts to decide what history should be, that's where the problem comes. Because you may well have, as I said, Desh is entirely entitled to his opinion, but if that's the version that's being taught to millions of school children, there are some who will contest it.
the history writing in India has been political, driven by the political ideology. Secondly, the moment you say that, the historian should come, but who, good historian and bad historian, who is going to define the good historian and the bad historian? If the historians, if Harman's Mukhia writes, it's a good history. If Irfan Habib writes, it's a good history. But if Makhan Lal writes, it's a bad history. All historical projects, history writing projects earlier have been funded by the government of India. Or even in the state like West Bengal, when the chief minister, when the cabinet makes a directive that please don't try to highlight the vandalism and defilements of temple or destruction of temples during the medieval period. Is it not the state intervention in the history writing? Why do you want to avoid it from the history book? If you have the guts, you write the objective history and say, admit it that yes, there was a vandalism during the medieval period.
A week where India lost one of her tallest sons, a statesman whom we all grew up respecting, loving, thinking a lot of, and Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who'd been ailing, of course, for a long, long period of time, finally passed away. And there was an emotional farewell that the nation bid to him. Throughout that farewell, we kept on saying this is not really the time to think too much or talk about politics or what are the lessons that we should draw, and there'll be a time for us to do that. Or perhaps now is the time for us to introspect a little bit and to think at what were the lessons that Atal Bihari Vajpayee perhaps would want all of us to take from his career, from his life. If there's a sort of a lesson that today we as a country should be thinking about, what would be the legacy in your view that you think Atal ji would want to remember him by, and the lessons that you think he would like us to imbibe?
Well, I personally think that he would have liked to be remembered as he truly was, a great democrat, a great consensus builder, a great parliamentarian, and above all, a great human being. I think that is how he would have liked to be remembered, a person who was a great nationalist, a great patriot, and always thought of his country in everything that he did.
Well, Mr. Yashwant Sinha, you've been a senior BJP leader for a very long time, and it's no secret that you were a great admirer of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. It's also no secret that you're not necessarily a great admirer of the present government or the present Prime Minister. So what would be your advice to the present government, and what advice do you think Atal Bihari Vajpayee would have for the present government?
My advice to the present BJP and to the present government, both, will be that they should emulate the example of Atalji. Atalji, his popularity cut across political party lines, as you're aware and as everyone is saying today. He had the knack of conveying his messages wrapped in such sweetness that nobody took it amiss. And as a great democrat, he realized that the opposition in the country was as important as the ruling party, having spent so many long years in opposition himself. And we are part of a major joint venture for the progress of this country, and therefore he treated the opposition with great respect. I remember numerous occasions where he would call the leaders of the opposition parties in parliament to discuss an issue. If the parties in opposition raised an issue through letters or on the phone, he would immediately call them for a discussion. And this is how he was able to evolve a consensus.
So trying to get the present government to derive lessons from that. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi couldn't have said or done more to tell the nation about that special bond he felt with Atal Bihari Vajpayee. He called him a father figure, walked for 6 kilometers yesterday, 5 or 6 kilometers yesterday, in what must have been a very tough time for security officials. So, do you think he would also be introspecting, thinking of Atalji, the lessons from him, and perhaps imbibing some of those lessons in how the government is run?
Well, I hope so. I hope so. I hope that the way Mr. Vajpayee ran the government and the way he dealt with the opposition, and again I'm defining opposition as opposition within the party, within the cabinet and outside. If we follow that path, then I would dare to say that democracy will be safe in this country. It is the values of democracy and the conventions of parliament which were very dear to his heart, and he followed them meticulously, religiously, and that's how it should be in a democracy like India's.
We've heard some talk, Mr. Sinha, on whether Atal Bihari Vajpayee and that legacy now becomes a sort of a rallying point for some members of the NDA who are pushing for change or pushing for an alternative way for things to be done, a different way of dealing with the allies, and including many within the BJP who are having disagreements with the way things are going. Do you see that happening? Do you see Atal Bihari Vajpayee and the legacy of Atal Bihari Vajpayee becoming a symbol or a rallying point?
Well, if the present dispensation follows the ideals and practices of the former Prime Minister, the late Prime Minister Vajpayee ji, then obviously many things will fall in place and will start happening. But I would like to add on your show that if the present practices continue, present attitudes continue, both within the party, with the allies and with the opposition, then things don't look too good.
So if I could just ask you to be a bit more specific, what specifically are the attitudes that you're talking about? What are the things that you would like to see change, or for that matter, in your view, Atalji would have liked to see change?
No, I'd like to see more inner party democracy within the BJP. I'd like consensus building within the party. I would like to see consensus building outside the party. How is it that it's said that the party is being run by only a couple of individuals, or nobody in the cabinet has any authority, or the allies are leaving BJP, or they are unhappy with the way we are running things. All these things can be smoothened out if only we had more consultations and we brought a democratic spirit to bear on these issues.